take a good look. That's right, take a good look. Because I claim my neshama is Portuguese. And it went out with the dispersion, 1492. Take a good look at my coloring. So this is a backstory. How did I come to feel this way? That the transmigration of my soul has wound up here in New York City as Stephen Turner, 600 years later. How did this happen that I feel that I have a whoosh towards Portugal and that my family has gravitated to Portugal in the last 50 years? This concept started with me maybe 8 years ago when I went to a rabbi's house, and he had a special rabbi from Israel there. The rabbi took one look at me and he said, "You're Portuguese." I shook my head. I said, "Well, I'm, Ashkenazi, from Hungary, from Romania." He said, No, you're Portuguese. You're coloring, you're Portuguese. And so I thought for a moment. And then I realized that my entire life for the past 50 years has revolved around Portugal. This weird thought from a rabbi telling me that my lineage was from Portugal, the Sephardic tradition, not the Ashkenazi tradition that I thought I was part of. Then I started to think. That started maybe 50 years ago when my family, who used to take boats, ships from America to Europe for summer vacations, was tired of doing that, and see, we did that because my mother wouldn't fly. So finally she acquiesced to fly. And so what did we do? We went by plane and she said, well, let's take the shortest trip. So we took the shortest trip and we went to Portugal. New York to Portugal, to Lisbon, was the shortest trip. In retrospect, I think that was our first time to Europe. After that, we used to take boats. But our first time to Europe, my first trip to Europe, was to Portugal. Then, we subsequently went back there a couple of times. I played tennis there, and remember it fondly. Then, when I was 21 years old, I developed a relationship with a woman here in New York, and that woman was by the name of Albuquerque. As it turns out, she was a descendant of Alphonse d'Albuquerque, the explorer, the Portuguese explorer. Strangely enough, this is when I was 21, I'm 65 now, so it's 40, I'm 66 now, 45 years ago. I'm still in touch with her. Still close. In those years,
Although she lives in Europe.
yeah, even though I'm being told here, even though she still lives in Europe, I'm still close with her. In those years between maybe I was 11 or 12 when that flight occurred, and 21 when I started with this Albuquerque, there was other things that transpired. My family started to import Portuguese wallpaper. We're not great business people, yet a prominent part of our business was this Portuguese wallpaper that we imported from Lisbon. Another strange thing that occurred was that my mother made friendship with the daughter who owned that company. This is like 50 years ago. And she's still friendly with that woman today, even though that woman still lives in Portugal and we live in New York. Strange thing about this is, my mother has no friends but her. So the strange thing about Portugal is that all these close personal relationships, business relationships, that I would have let slide by if not for this rabbi looking at me and telling me that I have a Portuguese ancestry, that I am Portuguese. And so I go from there, as that's my lineage. We left, obviously, Portugal in 1492, and like many other families, went to the Ashkenazi world, Hungary, Romania, Germany, Austria, and lost the Sephardic traditions along the way. So when you're looking for true Sephardic people, you have to look into the Ashkenazi world, because they went into Ashkenazi lands and lost the traditions. Then, again, the dispersion came to America and lost even more traditions. So, how could I be part of a Sephardic community? How could I have roots in Ladino? See? All I could tell you is, I have a Sephardic soul. I have contact with the land of Portugal. I am of Portuguese tradition. Take a good look. This is Portuguese coloring. Even different than Spanish. The only tennis tournament I ever won was in Huelva, Spain. Pretty close to Portugal, and even may have been in previous 1,000 years ago. So all these connections to Portugal are evident in this face. This is the proof. I need to go no further than that. Now, subsequently, here I am in New York, Stephen Turner. Couldn't tell anything from that name. You couldn't tell from that name. I'm Jewish. Luckily, my name is Alexander Ben Froyam. Alexander, the only Hebrew name that is not a biblical name. And that's a perfect expression of me, because here I am in a non-Jewish world. And one of the things I want to do is to go back to Portugal with my Kabbalistic symbols, which I haven't talked about here, and open up a small atelier in one of these Jewish community settings where I make amulets to tourists of my unique Kabbalistic symbols. I haven't talked about my own work and life here in America. But I'll tell you this. I feel more complete having a sense of my Portuguese origins than I do a sense of Israeli origins. Strangely enough, I don't feel that push to be a Zionist. I feel the diaspora is where people belong. Yet, that diaspora can still have a homeland, and my home is in Portugal.